Hey y'all, it's Sharon and I'm back to share another policing experience with you guys. If you're new to the channel, I'm a retired detective. I worked for 20 years for a southeastern city in the US and I was also in the military. I'm sharing my perspectives along with my experiences in hopes of helping others in similar situations or just provide a different perspective from my point of view while I was in the rank and file in policing and in the military, some of the experiences in the military. And with that being said, this is part 2 of being woke, being a police officer who is waking up, if you will, or has awakened. And like I mentioned in the last video, being woke, this anti-woke movement, the meaning has been hijacked. And the meaning of woke, I mentioned it in the other video, but woke is basically when our kindness and empathy isn't self-serving. Once you wake up to that, once you discover within yourself some of your bias and some of your prejudices, that's going to make you aware of everybody else around you, believe it or not. I know woke, it's basically an awareness of injustice, the racial issues within society. But if we don't start within us, how are we going to fix it? How are we going to get to the whole idea of restructuring police? So I want to share this real quick. Within my agency, my agency that I used to work for, there were a lot of policies and practices that allowed you to blame someone else, if you will. Excuse me. Accountability was a piece, but it wasn't a foundational piece, if you will. A couple of the policies were very vague, and a friend of mine, he would ask, how is it that officers always get their jobs back? And the reason is because of the policies and practices within the agency. And what I mean by that is, if you can always prove that another officer did the same exact thing that you're getting in trouble for and received less punishment, you're always going to get your job back or your days back from being suspended. If you can prove it, you're going to get your job back, right? So what does that say about the policies and the practices and the standards within that agency? Think about it. If you can get away with taking somebody's civil liberties away, and you can prove, well, this officer did the same thing and all he did was get a slap on the wrist, or all she did was get a couple of days, but you're giving me 30 days of suspension, which means a lot of money for some officers. If you can prove that another officer received less punishment, I'm going to get my job back. I'm going to get my days back. So that leaves interpretation to the practices and policies that we call SOP. You know, there was a saying that while I was working, there are practices that are not policy, and there are definitely policies that are not practiced. I'm sure that happens in other agencies, but that's the saying I remember. And so being woke is taking the self-inventory as an individual who happens to be a police officer, who happens to be brown, who happens to be female. And that's what I did. But I did it only after being retaliated against, being ostracized for speaking up about what officers were doing in terms of two other situations. And I explained in my other videos, look, the Holy Spirit was like, look at yourself, look within your heart. And that was a hard, man. I go back to it and you see the reluctance, and I really had to clean up and sit with myself and sit within my own mess, my own prejudices, my own bias. I shared that I had a bias towards white men, and I'm not afraid to say it anymore. Yes, to me they were low-key racist and disrespectful. You know, I told you how that happened. It was something from my childhood. I was 11 years old. And pointed a gun at my face, and I saw the rounds in the revolver. You know, it was a hair trigger away from not even being here. For what? 11-year-old, 60-pound, flesh and bone female with no weapons. Oh, wait. He could have taken it as a weapon. We were pulling out nails. We were on punishment, pulling the nails out of boards or something like that at my father's job. And I told him, I said, I have a hammer, and he said, throw it out. So I come up with my hands up, and the gun is like less than probably 5 inches from my face. And he did not lower the gun. He told us to get on the ground, which was hot. You know, my brother's about 2 years younger than me. But anyway, that, like I said, created a mark in my mind towards white men. And then as I grew up and working and things like that, especially in policing, I noticed that a lot of white males would call me by my first name. And they would say, you know, you got a little smart mouth, whatever. But I would say to them, they call me Sharon. People I don't even know, white men. Hey, Sharon. And I'm like, And I wouldn't answer at first. And then when they say it again, I'm like, you didn't leave me in hot water this morning. And they'd look perplexed. And they were like, what? I was like, you didn't leave me any hot water this morning. You didn't leave me any hot water. They're like, what? And then I'll tell them, you're speaking to me like we slept together, like we pay bills. And you get, I didn't mean it like that. No, you did. You did. So they would call me militant and the angry black woman. No, it's respect. I call you by your title, or I call you by your last name, like we're accustomed doing. If we're on the same level, you don't know me. Why are you calling me by my first name? But yeah, that's what they call check. But like I said, my issue with white men, I had to dig within because I had a bias towards them. And I mentioned how they're getting tickets. If I pull them over or if I stop you, somebody going to jail, you're going to get a ticket or get arrested. If there's probable cause, I'm doing it. I'm not giving any breaks. And that's what I used to say. But that was a bias that was within me, and the offense was within me. And that's what I had to figure out and kind of clean out the closet, if you will. So being woke, when I think about policing and how, you know, my issue with white men, none of them got breaks. Not a one. You're not getting a break. So where was my empathy then? Or was my kindness then? If I hear the story, you know, I'm in a hurry and I got to get home, my wife is pregnant. No breaks. No breaks. And that's what they call discretion. So being woke, people, is basically when yours or mine, our kindness and empathy isn't self-serving. I think it was a story with it might have been Henry Ford. And he took out 2 candidates for whatever position he was hiring for. They both had the same credentials, so he figured I'll take them to dinner and make my decision then. And after dinner was over, he told the one guy that he wasn't hiring. He's like, thank you for dinner, you know, coming out, but I'm not going to be hiring you. And the young man said, could you tell me why you're not hiring me? And he said, every server that came to the table, you ignored, and you were basically nasty to, and you were only nice to me. He said the other guy showed compassion, was very friendly and smiled and addressed them as human beings. And that's what I mean by being woke. You are aware of your bias and you're aware of your prejudice and you work on that. So when your kindness and you're giving kindness and empathy, it's not rehearsed. It's just a natural behavior. So for the guy that didn't get the job, it wasn't a natural thing. And then he was only sucking up to Mr. Ford to get the job. And Mr. Ford said that. I'm summarizing, but that's the story. If we address what's within us, it's hard to do, because I'm telling you it's hard, because I had to do it. I had to do it. If we address our bias and our prejudice, the way we show up to the world, you wouldn't see a lot of the stuff you're seeing, the craziness, especially within policing. And it actually should be a class within training for officers to address some of the baggage that they come in with. Remember, I trained with my bias towards white men. How many others are just straight racist and just getting the training and going out there and doing God knows what? It should be a class, just like they give us the health and wellness class in terms of eating right and exercising. It should be a health and wealth class for the way you think and how you're thinking. But that's another video. Yeah, I just want to share that little bit with you guys. Being woke is actually looking within yourself and looking at your bias and your prejudice and sitting in that and unpacking that. So when you show up to the world, your kindness and empathy is genuine, it's natural. Now, I'm not saying go out there as a police officer, hey everybody, and you're not aware of your surroundings. Like I said, I didn't play. When it's time to go to jail, you're going. However that looks, it depends on you and your behavior, because I'm gonna be professional, but I can take it there with you, keeping safety in mind. But I always address people with respect. I always address people, maybe they're just having a hard day. I get it, I understand it, but if something went down where you broke the law, we got to talk about it in court. Some officers don't know how to change that lens once they realize the scene is safe, and they might be having a hard day, and maybe there's something that they shouldn't have said, but you kind of know where I'm going with this in terms of kindness and empathy being self-serving and meaning. How about this us versus them that we're taught in the academy? I told you, I become a part of them when I take the uniform off. I've been in that group. Other officers, when I get pulled over for whatever, maybe I was speeding or something, and the rough talk and the nastiness, what do I attribute that to? They're just having a hard day? Perhaps. But remember, when you put on the uniform, you're held to a higher standard. So whatever you're having, that needs to take a back seat. But the other thing I try to teach officers, be mindful. When you're being nasty and handling that individual any kind of way, what if they go down the street to your partner? Now they just had a messed up, let's just say verbal experience with you because you handled them any kind of way and you spoke to them any kind of way and didn't respect them. Now they go down the street and they get pulled over again. Now the attitude is there. Like, they see the uniform, they don't know the person. And now they're like, you know what, F this. And they do whatever. That's an officer's safety issue if you think about it. That's why when I give the ticket or whatever I'm doing, I just tell them to be safe, not have a nice day. They just got the $350 probably gonna come out their pocket. Have a nice day? No, just be safe. But some officers come with the attitude, yeah, sign right here. I don't know how much it's gonna be, just show up at court. And you send them down the road with that nasty attitude. And then they run into another police officer. And then that police officer has an issue, has a bigger problem to deal with because of what you said and how you did it. Something to think about. That's why we have to address our own prejudice, our own bias within us before you come into policing. It's just a thought, guys. Just a thought, just sharing. And that's it. I'll come back next week. Take a look at our online store. The link is in the description. I created some notebooks and some word search puzzle books. The links for those in the description. And always remember, guys, always remember, you don't necessarily have to go through a thing to learn from it. Talk to you later. Bye.